Right now, as you wash your rice for the evening meal, you're discarding something a garden supply store would eagerly package, brand, and resell to you for $15. That milky liquid swirling towards your drain isn't refuse. Handled correctly, it transforms into one of the most potent organic enrichments you can produce, costing you nothing but a trio of days for patience. Now, here's the part that might just irk you. Across this nation, cultivators invest vast sums annually in soil amendments, liquid stimulants, and microbial inoculants. The straightforward reality is that the most critical laborers within your soil have always been beyond the reach of commerce. They exist at a microscopic level, multiplying cost-free, and for a lifetime, we've been consigning them to the rubbish bin. So, for a few moments, let's set aside the marketing hype. 5 items you typically discard can become 5 living tonics crafted in a jar on your kitchen counter, and there are 5 compelling reasons why those who peddle plant food would prefer you continue purchasing their wares. In the first segment, we address the cloudy liquid you already generate. Let's begin with the one you create almost daily without a second thought. The opaque, milky water remaining after rinsing rice is brimming with starches, trace minerals, and a modest amount of protein scrubbed from the grain's surface. It appears insignificant, yet it is anything but, provided you treat it appropriately. Herein lies the pitfall most encounter. They pour this fresh, milky liquid directly onto their garden beds, anticipating miraculous results. What they receive instead is stagnation. Those raw starches serve as a veritable banquet for the existing soil bacteria. As these bacteria proliferate to consume them, they draw upon the soil's available nitrogen to fuel their growth. For a week or two, your plants are in direct competition with a surging bacterial population for the very nitrogen essential for their verdancy. Gardeners refer to this phenomenon as nitrogen immobilization. It's precisely why many attempt to use raw rice water once, observe their young plants turn sallow and languish, and then abandon the concept, convinced of its futility. The remedy, however, predates any horticultural establishment. You must first allow it to ferment. Pour the rinse water into a container, place a loosely fitting lid atop it, not sealed tightly, and let it rest on your counter, away from direct sunlight. Wild lactic acid bacteria, the very same microscopic organisms responsible for transforming milk into yogurt and cabbage into sauerkraut, will descend from the air and commence their work. They will break down those complex starches into simple organic acids and liberate the sequestered minerals into a form readily absorbable by plant roots. Observe the container and you can witness the entire metamorphosis firsthand. On the first day, it's merely cloudy water. By the third day, it will emit a faint sour aroma reminiscent of a sourdough starter, a bready scent that signals the bacteria have completed their task. Researchers at the University Putra Malaysia meticulously examined this exact process, discovering that the 3-day mark represents the optimal period. This is precisely when nitrogen fixation, phosphorus and potassium release, and the synthesis of natural plant growth hormones collectively reach their zenith. As the water fermented, certain nutrient levels increased by anywhere from approximately 4% to well over 200% compared to the unfermented rinse water. Imagine that for a moment. The same liquid you would have flushed away, sitting quietly on your countertop, transforming into something genuinely and measurably distinct. In their field trials, this fermented rice water achieved something that should give pause to the entire fertilizer aisle. When combined with only half the usual dose of conventional fertilizer, it performed on par with plots receiving a full chemical ration, all while safeguarding the beneficial soil bacteria rather than overwhelming them, as heavy applications of synthetic salts tend to do. Now, your garden is not a controlled research plot, so treat this as an encouraging indication rather than an absolute guarantee, but the implication is clear. This free jar of water holds substantial power. Its application is straightforward. Once your fermented liquid possesses a pleasantly sour scent, dilute it to roughly 1 part rice water to 4 parts plain water, and apply it around the base of your plants every couple of weeks. Avoid using it at full strength and proceed with caution around very young seedlings until they have established some growth. That's the entire procedure. And note this, there is no patent on a jar of rice water. No corporation on earth can affix its logo to the rinse water from your own sink. This is precisely why you've heard so much about commercially produced beneficial bacteria and so little about the free alternative residing beside your stove. If rice water nourishes the microorganisms, the subsequent leftover creates a permanent habitat for them that can endure for decades. Yet most individuals ruin it from the outset. In Segment 2, we explore the dark earth. Deep within the Amazon basin lie tracts of soil so profoundly dark, so substantial, and so fertile that they have retained their richness for millennia, even in a region where torrential rains typically strip ordinary soil bare within a single season. The indigenous populations who reside there deliberately cultivated this earth. Today, soil scientists refer to it as terra preta, which simply translates to black earth. The quintessential ingredient at its core is charcoal. A German soil chemist named Bruno Glaser dedicated years to studying these soils and was instrumental in elucidating their efficacy. When incorporated into the ground, charcoal resists decomposition and leaching, unlike compost. It remains in place for centuries, retaining nutrients and providing a dwelling place for billions of microorganisms long after other organic matter has broken down. This is the enduring lesson held within that black earth, a lesson you can apply to your own garden beds this season. However, here is where enthusiastic gardeners often err, and it is worth stating plainly to prevent wasted expenditure. Do not grab a bag of charcoal briquettes from the barbecue aisle and pulverize them into your soil. These contain binders, fillers, and residual lighter fluid that are undesirable in close proximity to produce you intend to consume. Furthermore, forego the expensive activated carbon marketed for aquariums and water filters. Its aggressive molecular binding properties can actually deplete nutrients from your plants. What you are seeking is genuine biochar. This is wood or plant matter subjected to intense heat with minimal oxygen, a slow charring process that artisans have employed for centuries. And here is the crucial step that rarely appears on product packaging. Freshly produced biochar, directly from the charring process, is inert. It consists solely of structure, a vast network of microscopic pores devoid of any content. Introducing it into your garden in this raw state is akin to placing a dry sponge into a puddle. It will absorb surrounding moisture and nutrients, including nitrogen, and sequester them away from your plant roots for the entire initial season. This is precisely why individuals who bypass this step often claim biochar has harmed their plants. The biochar itself was not the issue. They simply neglected to precondition it. You must charge it first. Immerse the biochar in a nutrient-rich medium. The fermented rice hull water from earlier is exceptionally suitable, as are compost tea, diluted urine, or even burying it within an active compost pile, allowing it to steep for 2 to 4 weeks. This process fills the pores with nutrients, and the internal surface becomes colonized by microorganisms. Only now is it primed and ready for application. One important detail to understand up front, as it is a common source of misinformation: biochar is not acidic. In fact, it leans towards alkalinity. Most biochar registers a pH between 7 and 10, placing it firmly in alkaline territory. Consequently, charged biochar acts as a gentle, slow-release liming agent. If your soil is acidic, incorporating biochar will gradually elevate its pH towards the neutral range, typically between 6 and 7, which is ideal for most vegetables. Therefore, it is an excellent amendment for tired, acidic soil. However, if your soil is already alkaline, use it sparingly, as you can easily push it too far in the opposite direction. Understand your soil's existing pH before applying biochar. Consider charged biochar as a fully furnished apartment complex for the beneficial life in your soil. Raw biochar is the empty structure, impressive but lifeless until tenants move in. Charge it, and you provide billions of beneficial microbes with a permanent residence, complete with a stocked pantry. Once incorporated into your soil, a single application can yield benefits for 20, 30, or even 40 years. A bag of premium biochar with added inoculants at the garden center can cost $30 to $40 for a small quantity. A bucket of homemade charcoal steeped in compost tea requires an afternoon and virtually no expense. It's the same scientific principle. And speaking of items marketed as miraculous solutions, the next one is perhaps the most famous purported cure in backyard gardening. It is largely a myth, and I wish to guide you directly to its origin to understand why. In segment 3, we address the milk miracle that wasn't. You've almost certainly encountered numerous recommendations. Spray milk on your garden and witness a dramatic surge in growth, often accompanied by a specific claim of a 26% increase in yield. It sounds wholesome, traditional, and too remarkable to keep secret. So, let's trace its provenance, because the authentic narrative is far more valuable to you than the popular legend. Around the turn of the millennium, a Nebraska dairy farmer named David Wetzel began applying his surplus skim milk to his pastures. His grass grew lusher, his soil felt more yielding underfoot, and word spread rapidly. Wetzel, in collaboration with a local extension educator, reported that a mere few gallons of milk per acre had boosted his grass yields by the now famous 26%. This claim was significant enough that the University of Nebraska undertook a rigorous investigation. A soil scientist there, Charles Shapiro, conducted a carefully designed, replicated, and statistically controlled trial, a genuine scientific endeavor, not mere speculation. And here's the crucial detail that the internet consistently omits. There was no statistically significant evidence to suggest the milk had any consistent impact whatsoever, neither on yield, nutrient levels, nor soil compaction. The minor variations observed in the field fell entirely within the expected range of natural plot-to-plot variability, akin to the random differences you might find between two adjacent patches of lawn for no discernible reason. A separate evaluation by a forage specialist at the University of Vermont, Sid Bosworth, reached the identical conclusion. Milk was neither a reliable nor an economically viable method for fertilizing a field. And here's the cautionary aspect that the feel-good narrative conveniently neglects to mention. Milk is one of the most oxygen-depleting substances you can introduce into the environment. It possesses an enormous biological oxygen demand. As it decomposes, the bacteria involved in the process extract dissolved oxygen from their surroundings. Water management specialists cite a sobering statistic. A single pint of spilled milk can deplete the oxygen from 1,600 gallons of water. Pouring raw milk onto the ground and allowing it to run off into a creek or pond can, in effect, suffocate aquatic life. Spraying it thickly onto the soil surface can result in a sour, greasy crust that seals the soil from the air, leading to stagnation, an unpleasant odor, and attracting every fly and scavenger in the vicinity. Stripped of its romanticism, milk is 90% water. The actual nutrients it contains are present but modest, and you can obtain all of them, along with substantially more beneficial organic matter, from a single handful of homemade compost, without the accompanying stench or risks. The true efficacy was never inherent in the milk itself, but rather in the soil life that the milk transiently supported. Compost, however, nourishes that same soil life more effectively, at a lower cost, and for a considerably longer duration. You'll notice that those most eager to sell you an idealized solution are rarely the ones who have bothered to test it. Therefore, reserve the milk for your cereal, not your tomatoes. However, don't depart the dairy section entirely empty-handed, for a humble, single-celled fungus residing in your pantry genuinely warrants a place in your watering can. In segment 3.5, we present your free blueprint. Before we delve into the next two items, I'd like to offer you something as a token of appreciation for your time. Everything you've learned here, and considerably more, is compiled into a complimentary guide, the Rooted Grace Microbe Tonic Blueprint. Aim your phone's camera at the code displayed on the screen, and it will directly lead you to the download. There's no cost and no sign-up required. Inside, you'll find a one-page chart correlating each waste product with its nutrient profile, precise application times and dilution ratios for all 5 tonics, and a seasonal feeding schedule. I've also included a few supplementary bonuses that didn't fit within this presentation. 2 additional free recipes, a troubleshooting guide, and a compilation of the research studies underpinning everything you've heard. Print it, Keep it near your potting bench and refer to it whenever needed. Now, let's discuss that yeast. In Segment 4, we examine the bread yeast in your pantry. That small packet of baker's yeast in your cupboard serves a purpose beyond bread making. Introduce this same single-celled fungus into your soil, and it functions as a miniature biological factory. Once you understand its actual impact, the packet will cease to be viewed as merely a baking ingredient and will instead be seen as a valuable tool. Plant scientists have discovered that numerous yeasts, including common bread yeast, actively produce and release plant growth hormones such as auxins, gibberellins, and cytokinins. These are the very chemical signals a plant utilizes to stimulate its own roots to extend deeper, branch more extensively, and thicken. Supplying yeast to the root zone effectively provides your plants with an additional stimulus for growth. Furthermore, it offers additional benefits. Yeast releases mild organic acids that help release bound phosphorus from the soil, making it accessible for root uptake. It also generates specialized compounds that chelate iron, capturing scarce iron in your soil and delivering it to the plants where they can absorb it. As a beneficial side effect, this reduces the availability of iron to the fungi that cause root rot and disease. Now, a word of caution, because the popular internet recipe can lead to significant problems. Nearly every viral rendition